We're back on the restoration of the 1905 new Ithaca double barrel shotgun. And today we're going to continue the survey of its condition, but we're also going to begin the process of dismantling the shotgun. Now, I went looking for any kind of parts breakdown, any kind of a schematic on this gun. I couldn't find one. An interesting part of this is I've never had one of these apart before, so I'm going to explore this right along with all the rest of you. I'm going to take this apart, and as I do it, I'm going to look for clues as to the original manufacturer. I'm going to look for clues as to the original finishes that they might have used on it. And the idea is I do the restoration because I don't have a pristine example of this from 1905. I'm not entirely sure what they're supposed to look like. Now, there's a lot of wear patterns on this, which you would expect after 115 years. So looking to understand how this gun came out of the factory originally, it's going to be a little bit of a hunt. It's going to be a little bit of a exploration of the gun. Again, looking for any clues that will help me to understand how I restore this thing and how I get it back to looking like it looked like out of the factory. So let's get started. Now, the first thing I want to do is get the wood stocks off the gun. As I begin to dismantle this, the wood stock is probably the most fragile part of the entire gun. So I want to get those off, get them separated from the rest of the gun as I begin to work to dismantle this. Now, off camera before we started, I've already had to use some penetrants and a persuader, the hammer, in order to get some of these parts loosened up so I can do this. This is again over 100 years old, and some of these parts I'm doubting this shotgun's been apart. It could have been, but I'm already struggling to get some of these screws loosened up. But we're getting there, so let's go ahead and get these wooden stocks off. Now, one of the things that we're going to have to deal with right up front, I'm taking this string off. There is a latch, and that latch belongs right in this area right here. It was brazed on originally, or soft soldered on, and it is missing. In fact, it appears as though an entire section is missing right up through here like that. I can see the silver solder where this, whatever this was in here has come apart. Again, it's probably an extension of this spacer in here. I've got a 1906 version of this gun, and I'll take that apart and try and compare that when we get to that point. But the latch itself is positioned right here, and it's that latch that keeps the forearm in place, and it is the forearm in place that holds the barrel or secures the barrel to the receiver during normal function, normal operation of the gun. So forearm is off. Now, looking at those clues, there's a serial number on the gun on again on the metal piece that goes in the insert into the forearm, and I'm sort of making a leap that it is the correct serial number. That serial number matches the serial number that's stamped into the wood or the forearm itself. But I can't absolutely prove that this forearm goes with this gun until I find another serial number on the receiver itself. And so far I haven't found a serial number on the metal receiver. So hopefully that we can find that evidence somewhere and compare and say, yeah, this is the correct forearm. Anyway, so right now I can't even latch this up because it's missing. I'm going to have to replicate or find a replacement or build a replacement for that latching. So there's that. Let's remove the barrel, and at this stage, once you've released the forearm, simply by releasing the lever. Now this lever, the spring on this is really tight. There's a little bit of play, but it's not excessive, and I'm not overly worried about it. One of the things that are important is that lever is in the correct position. So it is slightly to the right, which is what you're hoping to see in a side by side, which means that the latching on this is nice and tight, which is good, because if the family were to want to use the firearm or use the shotgun, again, this is a black powder only. If they wanted to, the lockup on this is nice and tight. Release that, and the barrel separates from the receiver itself. All right, so here's our first piece of evidence. There is a serial number on the bottom of the block here, and it is the same serial number as the serial number on the forearm. So we've now got 3 serial numbers that match. We've got the serial number on the metal insert, we've got it on the stock, and we've also got that same serial number on this block here. So that's all positive for moving the restoration forward and understanding that these parts so far are all associated with one another. I suspect that they are, but it's always good to check these things out. Now I'm not going to do anything with, there's another part that I can dismantle here. I'm not ready to do that yet. The extractors are, again, I got to remove all that when I get to the point where I'm doing those refinishes or that restoration, and I'm not ready for that just yet. Next thing I want to do is remove the buttstock from that receiver. So we're going to do a couple things. The first thing, we're going to remove this trigger guard. There's 2 screws that go, wood screws that go into the gun stock. That is not working as nice as I'd like it to work. Okay. That's not a wood screw, that's a machine screw. Okay, well. All right, that rear one is a wood screw. Now what I'm going to do, and if any of you have looked at my Auto 5 restoration, we've talked about this. I want to keep these parts together so that when it gets time for their individual restoration, I'm not having to remember where all of these parts go, what their associated components are. So I always put these into a piece of blue painter's tape, and the idea is that once I've taped them and then label them, so I'm calling this the lower trigger guard, and I'm going to put that in there. That way when I get to the point I'm ready to do that part of the restoration, I know where the parts go, and I don't have to, as I said, I don't have to remember it. It's all there for me. Now to get this out, now traditionally on most of these shotguns, this usually just pops away. I want to be careful. There we go. That just popped out of there. This screws in right-hand threads into the bottom plate of the receiver. That came out really easy. So if we look on the bottom here, and of course this part has been, and same serial number, so we're good there. This part goes with this gun so far as well. And there's another serial number right here on the stock, stamped into the stock. 03, 0. Yep. So there's another serial number stamped into the inletting of the receiver. It's the same serial number, so far we're doing good. That means this buttstock also goes with the forearm and it goes with the barrel. That's good. Of course, that same serial number is stamped on the bottom of the trigger guard. Now I mentioned we're looking for clues. So on the bottom of this, there is a black finish, which tells me it was blued originally. And if we look at some of those parts that can't get affected by people grabbing it, if we look at the inside of this trigger guard, the front of it, it's also blued. So what that's telling me is when I go to do the restoration or do the finishing on the metal, at least I know that the trigger card is not a brown color. It is actually, or was actually, blue, a black blue. So again, these surveys are really important so that when we make our decisions, that we're making them based on how the gun came out of the factory. And again, rather than sort of imagining what we think these things were, we look for these clues all along the way. The trigger guard is now out. There are 2 screws on the top of the top tang of the receiver. I pre-loosened these because they were tight. So that is a machine screw, and that means that machine screw goes down through that top tang and then screws into the lower tang as well, creating a clamping effect that keeps the stock clamped to the receiver itself. All right, this is number 2. Now these screws are actually exposed, so they will have a show finish. So when I get to that point in the restoration, I need to polish these. All right, same thing. That's a machine screw as well. One is longer than the other, so it's not as though I'm going to get these mixed up. So we'll tape these up. I'm just going to label these tang screws. Those go in the bins. Now my theory is this gun stock is going to pop right off the receiver, but I've never had one apart, so let's see what happens here. Going to be gentle. Yep, it's coming off. We want to spread the load, so we're going back and forth. There we go. So, quick observation, this gun stock or buttstock is split or cracked in a lot of locations. So it's split along in here. There's a large split on the other side. The panels themselves, which were at one point very crisp and sharp, have been rounded over, and I can see that there's been some either wear or sanding on the checkering. This panel is completely missing, and as is a lot of the checkering. So I think perhaps at one point the owner may have tried to refinish this. And again, I'm looking at this condition, and there appears to be like a layer of shellac or some kind of varnish on here that's not traditional to this. The finish on this forearm looks original. It's got the right luster, the right feel to it, the right color to it. So I suspect for some reason in this gun stock's history, it got sanded and refinished. I can see a lot of the original finish up here on top, so I'm not entirely sure. Again, this is sort of forensics. We don't know why somebody might have done this in the guns past, but we're going to have to get all that, but that'll be a separate project, separate video. One of the things that is concerning me is that there is a large split that goes right down through the entire center of this. It is not, and you can see it up on this end up in here as well. So we are going to have to figure out a way to deal with that. Now, I'm probably going to have to rebuild or reconstruct these panels because they're missing. And again, I'll show you that 1906 Ithaca that I've got that'll help me replicate those panels. But because I have to do that, I'm probably going to end up pinning this. Now I may actually put in a small wood screw. Again, I'm not entirely sure yet, to clamp this together or to keep this together. And I'm going to have to add back those decorative panels, and I can then put that decorative panel right over the wood screw is my thinking right now, but we're a long way in the future on getting that done. All right, I'm done with the stock for now. Now, it's 20 degrees outside. I'm in my shop. I've turned the heat off for this introduction. Frankly, I've got to turn the heat back on, and you're going to hear that heat cycling on and off. So I apologize if the furnace interferes at all. I'm hoping not much. It's not all that loud. So I just want you to know up front that you're probably going to hear that heat cycling on and off. All right. So let's get started.